What's up, everybody, and greetings from Atlanta, where today's adventure takes us to the Center for Puppetry Arts. We're going to go check out the Puppet Museum here in Atlanta. Once you get into the museum, you're greeted in this lobby area. Look at all the exhibits are mostly through here, except for the special exhibits, which will be over there. And today's special exhibit is 11th, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, the big reason I wanted to come to this museum today is for the Jim Henson collection. I grew up and still am a huge Muppet fan, so this is something I'm really looking forward to. Alright, so let's go for a walk through the Henson exhibit, and it's really neat. It starts from like the Jim Henson's early beginnings here with Salmon Friends and Wilkins and Wonkins, taking from the puppets through all this. It's a really well done exhibit. As a guy that grew up watching the Muppet Show and things like that and seeing all the Muppet movies, big fan of this. And got Rolf the dog. It's actually bigger, and it's kind of things you don't think about. Like, Rolf took two different puppeteers to do. One would do like one of the hands in the mouth, and the other one would do the other hand. It's kind of thing like I would never think of that kind of stuff. Moving along here, you got Jim Henson's office, which is neat. All sorts of knickknacks and kind of his personal journal there, which he wrote down all sorts of important stuff in. All sorts of knickknacks and personal photos. Molly, I think your favorite thing was was it the Bert and Ernie?
Yeah.
The snow globe?
Snow globe.
He talks about some of his stuff he did besides just the puppetry stuff, so like some of his artist stuff and his short film stuff. I love this. This is a reproduction of the stained glass window that hung up in his office, which I think is really neat. Moving along here, this is again something I didn't realize or think of, was before he really hit it big, he would make puppets for like commercials and corporate meeting films and things like that. And that's how like Cookie Monster first appeared as in a commercial for, I think it was apparently, what did they say here? All right, he was the wheel stealer. In that's how Rolf got his start. And it's sort of like these old-timey Muppets. And again, the exhibit's really well done, where you can sit here and watch a whole bunch of these clips. The next room of the museum takes you to the Jim Henson Puppet Workshop to sort of show off a little bit about how the different, puppets were made and that kind of thing. And give you just showing off some of the different random puppets. And it's really neat. So you got like this big tumbling interactive feature here, which shows off all sorts of felt and eyes that you could use to make Muppets. I love the big giant camel. And then there's even things like, very different puppets and random puppets, like the Hugga Wugga Buggy Hugger from the Muppet Show, who's probably used in like one episode, to a lunar rat, all sorts of things. You've got a dog from the Storyteller. And this is kind of neat, I thought. These boards here were used to make the Muppet hands, so the hands would always be the same shape. Very cool. And some of the other like behind the scenes stuff here, like some of those walkthrough Muppets, that's how they would work. Or this guy here who was behind a cart, there'd be a guy back there helping him out. All really neat stuff. You've got and it's interesting too, because some of them are much larger than you think, and some of them are much smaller. Like this guy was from Hey Cinderella. I like this. Suitcase number 3. And you got some more stuff here. And there's like things that I even forgot about. Like I do not remember the Secret Life of Toys, where this guy was involved. But that is the Puppet Workshop scene here. And then we start to move into more of the heavy hitters, and it begins with Sesame Street. Starting off with Bert and Ernie. And it's interesting too, because they're a lot bigger than you think they'd be. Like, Molly, go stand next to Bert and Ernie. See, there's Molly, there's Bert and Ernie. Like some of them are bigger than you think, and some of them are smaller than you think. Obviously, you'd think that Big Bird would be huge, and Big Bird is huge. I mean, that's a good 8 feet tall. I also love something like this where they show clips from Sesame Street, but for the kids that come to the museum, there's beanbag chairs and books if they want to read through that. Over here, you've got an exhibit showing off some of the different Muppets. And again, I love seeing the detail in person, like on just a random owl character, Harry. And of course, you get into some of the more famous ones, like Cookie Monster. And then again, like some of them are smaller, like Cookie Monster and Elmo. They're pretty small. I figured Cookie Monster would be bigger. So here's an exhibit that I think is really cool. This is right after you get out of Sesame Street. You get into an interactive exhibit where it sort of lets you be a puppeteer. And you have no idea how difficult it is to be a puppeteer until you get there and try to do it. So I'm going to pass the camera over to Molly and play with this for a little bit. So Molly, I want you to sort of get some of the camera here and then try and get me if you could. Just to show how difficult this kind of thing is. I dropped over a fish. Right. So I'm going to be playing with the lion. And it sort of, if you come over here, it shows you like stand here, like where you're supposed to stand on camera. But then you have to drop down, and I need to get my head out of the shot. Hi in the loop. Yep, look, my head's in the shot. Hi in the loop. I'm a lion. Roar! And it's really kind of interesting because it sort of gives you the same angle that you would see if you were a puppeteer on one of the Muppet shows. Hi. Hi. So there's just two things. Like it's really cool, interactive for kids, and for anyone who's wanted to try this or see how it works. First of all, it's far more difficult, and I'm sure it's the kind of thing that would take a while to film because it's so difficult. It's like, here, well, I get a shot of this. It's like how this worked. Like I had a hard time keeping my head out of the shot when it was just me, but look at like stuff like that when there was 5 different people controlling puppets. It like shows you how difficult this kind of thing would be. And then there were other things like I've never thought about before, like this guy here. This is a dolly that they would use for when a Muppet would have to walk next to a performer. Like say Kermit was going to talk to, a guest host on the Muppet Show, and they were going to walk somewhere. They would use this dolly to allow that to happen. It goes into some of the earlier Muppets too, so the stuff pre-Muppet Show. And I was hoping they were going to have something like this, and they do. One of these giant, like 7-foot-tall Muppet Man type guys. I love it. Like this is something I always loved. Like in the classic intro to the Muppet Show, was that these guys would be in the background, and they're as cool as in person as they are on the intro. And of course, when you think of Jim Henson, the first thing that comes to mind is the Muppets franchise, and so they have to have some Muppet stuff. Of course, starting with Kermit the Frog himself. A little bit of a disappointment. It's not like an actual Kermit puppet. This was a photo puppet, so something you'd use in like magazine shoots and things like that. So that's a bit of a bummer there for me. But what is cool is that they have Fozzie Bear, a real-life Fozzie Bear, who looks fantastic. Sometimes you see things that were on TV and they don't look good, but these guys look great. Fozzie Bear, Dr. Teeth. I thought this was Camilla. It's not Camilla. This is chicken number 5. But again, sort of shows you how they work. Like if you drop down, you can see like that's where the hand would go in to work chicken number 5. Then you have some characters here from like random sketches all throughout the Muppet Show. Love the look of some of these guys. Some various African masks from the Muppet Show. And then you get into some of the stuff they've done. They talk a little bit about some of the Muppet movies. And you've got characters from Muppets Treasure Island. Not the best Muppets film, but the puppets used in the film were fantastically detailed. So it is kind of cool to see them. And again, you look at some of these guys. And obviously this was, later on, this was a movie that came out in the mid-90s. So some of these guys were pretty advanced. Like if you look at all the electronics that would go into the lobster guy. And that's the Muppet section here. After the Muppet section, you get into this section here, which they've got Emmett Otter from Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas and Ma Otter. And then you end up right into Fraggle Rock. where they have a sprocket puppet, which is cool, and it's different to see how the different Muppets work. Like this guy was very, very different than what we've seen in the other scenes before. I watched a lot of Fraggle Rock growing up. You didn't watch nearly as much as I did, I don't think, Molly.
No, I was the Muppets.
Yeah. I was totally into Fraggle Rock, but I feel bad because I forget if it was Doozers or Dozers. But either way, they are adorable, and they have a couple different ones. Like, oh, cool! And then, of course, they've got some of the Fraggles, and some of the more famous Fraggles. And again, throughout a lot of these screens, there's screens where you can watch some of the clips and some behind-the-scenes stuff to show how things work. They do also talk about some of the major, like, non-Muppet branded movies that they had for Henson, like The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. These were movies that I think I was the wrong age when I was a kid, or I was too much of a wimp, because they were the kind of things that would like give me nightmares. And it's understandable. Like, look at this thing, that might give you nightmares. I could totally see that. But for a puppetry museum, they have some amazing puppets and effects and things like that. And also, there's this. Look at that creepy thing. They also have a part here talking about Labyrinth a little bit, and we're going to get to the special exhibit about Labyrinth in just a moment or two, but it's the permanent portion. And again, not my favorite thing, but it's cool to look at it and see the detail is pretty fantastic. And they even go into stuff that, like, I didn't think they would go into stuff like this, like Dog City. I remember watching Dog City. It was a weird show. They've got a small exhibit about the Jim Henson Hour, which I used to watch. It was interesting. I would always watch like the first half hour, and then I would turn off for the second half an hour because I would love the Muppet stuff, but I was not a big fan of the storyteller stuff. And again, these are some of the ones from the Jim Henson Hour. And then that's pretty much it. You know, I do like this. The exhibit sort of ends where you get to draw your own character and put it on the wall to see if it inspires you, and then a little montage about his legacy of where the Muppets have been since he passed away in 1990. So Jim Henson exhibit, really well done, very, very nice. Also on the way out of the exhibit, there's this great stained glass from the first scene in the Muppet movie. So right now the special exhibit is all about Jim Henson's The Labyrinth, and it's a very small special exhibit, but if you're a big fan of the film, it would probably be a good thing for you, as they do have some really cool puppets in here. Again, this was not one that I was a huge fan of, but as a guy that likes puppets in detail, especially Henson puppets, they do have some cool stuff. Like these guys, like I love stuff like this. The amount of detail and uniqueness in these guys, awesome. And some of these were the kind of, like, this and The Dark Crystal were the movies that could, like, give you nightmares as a child. I love the plaster head of the goblin guy. And it was interesting to see, like, the behind the scenes stuff of how this worked. Like this lady here worked like that. So that's really cool. You've got costumes from the film, of course. Big clock. Some crystal balls that were a big important part of the movie. On the right, you have some of these big giant weapony props. And on the left, again, more puppets with awesome detail. Like, look at that. And that was just on the top of the staff. Interesting, like how this puppet here, that is holding a staff, is actually three different parts. The staff, the body, and then the head are all different parts. Again, love the detail and the size of some of these guys. Like this thing. Imagine kind of trying to control that thing and how many people that would take. Just nuts. And then that's kind of the it for the Labyrinth exhibit. The other big permanent collection in the museum is the global collection. Not as familiar with this, but could be interesting. So this exhibit takes you continent by continent, and then at each continent it's here to take you through the history of puppetry through that continent, starting off here with North America, some ancient puppets from the 1400s, all the way through Native American stuff here. It's kind of interesting because they talk a lot about the Native American myth of the Raven, which plays heavily, as a big theme park fan, that plays heavily in a mystery lodge over at Knott's Berry Farm. So I find that interesting in my dorkiness. You've got puppets over here from Central and South America. And some of them, they're really, really neat. A lot of detail. Interesting to see, all the different countries' takes on puppets. Some of these are from, I guess, New York City, in that area. They talk a little bit about the Macy's Parade and how they're essentially giant puppets. This I found was kind of interesting, talking about how puppets are often used in like political rallies and that kind of thing. And you've got a giant version of that was used. Moving along, you've got Wayland Flowers and Madam, which is before my time, but it's still a very famous puppet. Got some of the stuff from TV in the mid-century. And then these are puppets I really like. These are giant puppets, very, very tall, from a Broadway production of Alice in Wonderland from the Carpenter and the Walrus scene. And then this is something I love. They talk about stop-motion puppetry, which I guess is a type of puppetry. And I grew up, I was born in '85, so I grew up and I loved Gumby and Pokey, and they have an actual Gumby and Pokey. Like, to me, that is so neat. And these are from stop-motion Alice in Wonderland. And then they get into some of the Tim Burton stuff, too. So you've got figures from the Corpse Bride here. And then more recently, we've had stop-motion come back a little bit with Paranorman, the Box Trolls, and Coraline. And they have an entire set here from Coraline. But I can't imagine making one of these stop-motion films. It has to be like the most... it's a beautiful process, but it's just so painstakingly slow. But I love the detail on the set. It was a weird movie. Next up, we end up in England. And of course, you think England and puppetry, you think Punch and Judy. And of course, a big section of that is dedicated to Punch and Judy. Do like the crocodile kind of puppet there. Moving along, you got some of the France and Belgium puppets here. Again, the detail on these things are really, really cool. Some of these are in great shape too. That makes sense. He's from 2013. Of course he'd be in great shape. I should really read some of these things before I talk, right? That would help. Over here, you do have an interactive exhibit to sort of show you about how some of the puppets work. Molly, you can be so kind. And she's going to go over there and control, which is cool. Definitely something nice for kids to sort of give them something to play with, instead of looking at all these historical puppets, showing them how one works. Very, very neat. More stuff in the collection here. Check out the devil guy. Very, very old looking puppets from 1920s. Some of the stuff does get a little weird as we now move into Africa and Asia. I will say the museum is very, very different. I get to a fair share of museums, and I've definitely never been to a museum of puppetry. So this one goes down as something different. I like this because you get to see the inner workings of this wolf puppet. And then you've got things that I wouldn't even think of as puppetry. Like they have a couple of the headpieces from the Broadway production of The Lion King, which is a wonderful musical. And I'm a guy that doesn't like musicals. I've been to a couple. I was kind of bored by most of them. But I really, really like the Lion King one. So you got Scar and Mufasa. Over here you got some kind of flat puppets, as well as some stuff from India. I thought this was really neat how they talk about in this, in Vietnam they do a festival of puppetry like on the water. You can see like some of that over there as people are hiding behind a screen. And I think that's really, really neat. It's something, I'd never even seen something like that before. again, different countries' takes on puppetry here as we see that. It's interesting how these guys look more like, you know, what I would think of as more of an action figure than a puppet type. You get some very big ones here. Look at that guy. Oh, this gives you an idea about how those work. When I was talking about the underwater one in Vietnam. So the people would stand here on the other side of the screen, and then with sticks they would control these guys here. So that's very, very neat, very interesting. Finishing things up here, still in the Asia section. This guy's cool. And you do have one more interactive play thing for kids over here with shadow puppets, which makes sense as you get the ability to turn a knob and sort of focus them in and out, and then make them kick. So that's neat as well. And that is the global collection here at the Center for Puppetry Arts. And that'll do it for our time here at the Center for Puppetry Arts. I liked it. I thought it was neat. Not too expensive. I think it was like $12.50, $13, something like that to get in. So not overly expensive. If you're into Muppet stuff or puppet stuff, I'd recommend it. It does not take very long to see it. It probably takes about an hour to an hour and a half. But I thought it was pretty cool. Molly, what do you think?
I enjoyed it. It was very unique to see how
very different, yeah.
This is very different.
All right, well, that'll do it. Thank you guys, and we'll talk to you next time.